Barry Sanders' 1988 season wasn't just great, it was absurd. In just 11 games, Sanders ran for 2,628 yards and 37 rushing touchdowns, both still NCAA single-season records. And here's the thing, those stats don't include his bowl game, thanks to NCAA policy at the time. If they did, the total would jump to 2,850 yards and 42 touchdowns. To put that into perspective, Melvin Gordon came closest in 2014 with 2,587 yards, but he needed 14 games to do it. Sanders had already crossed that mark by Thanksgiving. Gordon also had 343 carries. Sanders, just one more, 344 in 3 fewer games. In 2015, Derrick Henry rushed for 2,219 yards in 15 games with a whopping 394 carries. Even Christian McCaffrey, known for being everywhere on the field, couldn't sniff Sanders' pace. Today's college football landscape just doesn't allow this kind of season anymore. Star players split carries, leave early for the NFL, or sit out bowl games entirely. Add in the fact that bowl stats now count, meaning players have more games, and yet no one has topped Sanders. If the NCAA ever retroactively included his Holiday Bowl stats, this record would look even more untouchable than it already is. As his coach Pat Jones put it, it's obviously the greatest season any individual has had, maybe in any sport. Barry didn't just break the rushing record. He left it in the dust, juked it twice, and vanished into college football legend. Next up, Arnold Mickens of Butler. Now, his name might not ring out like Barry Sanders or Herschel Walker, but in 1994, Mickens carved out a slice of history so wild it barely sounds real. 8 consecutive games with over 200 rushing yards. Not career total, not over a season, 8 weeks in a row, every Saturday, 200 plus yards. And this wasn't a random outburst. Mickens averaged 190.7 rushing yards per game across his entire career, an FCS record. He also holds the single game carry record with 56 carries, and once took 26 straight handoffs without a break. His streak kicked off with 218 yards and 3 touchdowns against Xavier, then kept rolling. Georgetown, UW Stevens Point, Drake, Valparaiso, Dayton, San Diego, and finally, Evansville. In that last game, he capped the run with 244 yards and 3 more scores. The highlight, a punishing 295-yard performance on 56 carries against Valparaiso, right in the middle of the streak. And to really appreciate it, look at the career record. Charles Roberts of Sacramento State owns the FCS record with 13 total 200-yard games from 1997 to 2000. But even he never had more than 4 in a row. His was spread across 4 seasons. Mickens did 8 in a single run. No breaks, no letdowns. So why is this record safe? Because today's game doesn't let one guy carry the offense like that. Running backs are rotated, workloads are split, players are protected from burnout. In 1990, the Houston quarterback, David Klingler, didn't just lead an offense, he became one. Every snap was like plugging into a high-voltage scoreboard, and the guy never stopped producing. By the end of the season, he averaged 474.6 yards of total offense per game. That's like throwing for 300 yards and running for 175 yards every Saturday for the entire season. It's a number so big it barely makes sense. To compare, in the last decade, only 4 players even touched the 400-yard mark. The closest is Patrick Mahomes in 2016, who still fell 30 yards short, and Mahomes plays like he's in a video game. So how did Klingler pull this off? He played in Houston's run-and-shoot offense, a system that basically told defenses, good luck. The game plan was simple, pass a lot, pass fast, and don't stop. He once threw 11 touchdowns in one game and racked up 716 passing yards in another. Yes, in one game. Could someone break this record today? Not likely. Coaches yank starters early to avoid injuries, teams are more balanced, and college football now plays like the NFL. One of the few quarterbacks to average more than 400 yards per game in a season, not once, not twice, but 3 times, was Case Keenum, also from the University of Houston. But Keenum didn't just have monster games, he stacked them like pancakes for 5 years straight, finishing with 20,114 career yards. To beat Keenum's total, a quarterback would need to average over 385 yards per game for 13 games a season for 4 full seasons. Let's be real, that's not just hard, that's football's version of walking a tightrope over lava while juggling. A magical game? Sure. A monster season? Maybe. But 4 years of nearly 400 yards a game in today's college football? Forget it. The best quarterbacks are gone to the NFL by year 3. You'd need perfect health, a wide open offense, a loaded supporting cast, and a coaching staff that doesn't disappear to the SEC every December. How dominant is Keenum's record? The gap between him and second place, Timmy Chang, is 3,204 yards, which is also the gap between second and 15th place. And despite it all, Keenum never won the Heisman, not even after averaging video game numbers 3 seasons in a row. But he doesn't need a trophy. That yardage total, nobody's touching it. Let's talk about Tony Sands, because in 1991, Kansas handed him the ball 58 times in one game. Not 15, not 25, 58. It's as if he was on a solo mission. Against Missouri, Sands didn't just run the ball, he owned the ball. He racked up 396 rushing yards, averaging nearly 7 yards every time he touched it. Modern coaches would be crucified for that kind of workload. Sports science would call it reckless. Fans would call it cruel. Trainers would be waiting on the sideline with an IV. But Kansas, they just kept feeding him like a vending machine that never runs out of quarters. Today, running backs get rotated out just to keep fresh legs on the field. Back then, Tony Sands was the rotation. And sure, Kansas won 53-29, but let's be honest, Missouri's defense couldn't stop a breeze that year. No one's matching 58 carries again. That era's gone. So is that level of grit. Let's talk about the most perfect punt ever. 99 yards launched by Pat Brady of Nevada in 1950. Yep, 99. That's almost like the whole field. And no, it wasn't wind assisted or kicked from a rocket launcher. It was just one of those freak plays where everything aligned. Brady punted from deep in his own end zone. The ball took off, hit the ground, and just kept rolling, past midfield, past the returner, and all the way to the other end zone. Here's why it can't be broken. The field is only 100 yards long, and by rule, you can't punt from beyond your own goal line. So 99 is the absolute max. It's the punting version of a perfect score, and it actually happened. Not the flashiest record, sure, but try beating physics. Brady didn't just boom a kick, he put his name on something nobody else ever can. Let's rewind to 1969. It's Florida versus Auburn. And under center for the Gators, it's John Reeves, a talented sophomore quarterback with one of the wildest stat lines you'll ever see. 9 interceptions in one game. Yep, 9. That's almost a full baseball lineup. At some point, you expect the coach to gently take the ball away and say, okay, maybe not today, John. But nope. Head coach Ray Graves left him in. All game, through picks 5, 6, 7, even 9. Either Graves had a lot of faith in Reeves, or he just really wanted to test Auburn's secondary. To be fair, Florida actually had a good season after that, finishing 9-1-1, so maybe it was just one very, very bad day. But Reeves earned himself a permanent spot in the record books, just not the kind quarterbacks usually brag about. Let's be honest, no one's breaking this one, not because it's unbeatable, but because coaches won't let it happen again. Being a college quarterback is chaos. You've got to read defenses, dodge blitzes, and still hit your receivers, while the other team tries to knock you into next week. So throwing 428 passes without a single interception, like Colby Cameron did in 2012, is flat out impressive. Cameron averaged about 36 throws per game over a 12-game season and never gave the ball away once. No fluke and no lucky bounces, just clean, consistent football. That kind of streak requires sharp reads, quick decisions, and near-perfect accuracy. How rare is this? In recent years, the closest anyone has come is Tua Tagovailoa, who had a 206 attempt streak at Alabama. That's still less than half of Cameron's total. Most top QBS don't even get close before a tipped pass or a misread ends the streak. In today's high-speed, high-risk offenses, 428 interception-free passes isn't just rare, it's practically untouchable. On November 17, 1990, David Klingler of the University of Houston did something no other college quarterback has ever matched. He threw 11 touchdown passes in a single game. The opponent, a completely outmatched Eastern Washington team that got buried under a passing avalanche. Running Houston's fast-paced run-and-shoot offense, Klingler came out firing. He threw touchdowns on each of Houston's first 6 drives, and even with the game clearly out of hand, the Cougars didn't hit the brakes. Klingler kept throwing into the fourth quarter, finishing his 11th touchdown with over 12 minutes still on the clock. The final score? Houston 84, Eastern Washington 21. This record is wild not just because of the number, but because of how rare it is for a quarterback to even be left in the game that long with such a big lead. Coaches today would bench their starter by halftime. Klingler stayed in, kept throwing, and made history. That 11 touchdown mark hasn't been touched in over 30 years, and it likely never will be. This wasn't just a game, it was the game that left Cumberland in shame. On October 7th, 1916, Georgia Tech obliterated Cumberland College 222-0, the largest margin of victory in college football history. Why? Revenge. Georgia Tech's coach, John Heisman, yes, that Heisman, was still salty after Cumberland embarrassed his baseball team the year before with a squad allegedly full of ringers. So when Cumberland, who had already disbanded its football team, was forced to play to avoid a $3,000 penalty, Heisman showed no mercy. Georgia Tech ran a jump shift offense, a fast-moving, misdirection-heavy system that Cumberland clearly didn't even try to understand. They didn't record a single first down, not one. Meanwhile, Georgia Tech scored on nearly every possession using crisp blocking, speed, and relentless drive rotation. Cumberland's players looked like they wandered in from a math lecture. They weren't ready, weren't trained, and frankly, shouldn't have been there. This was a demolition disguised as a football game. From 1953 to 1957, Oklahoma, under legendary head coach Bud Wilkinson, did the unthinkable. They won 47 straight games. That's nearly 4 full seasons without a single loss. Just win after win. It remains the longest winning streak in college football history, and nobody's really come close since. Wilkinson's Sooners were a machine. They ran a disciplined, option-based offense and paired it with a suffocating defense. They didn't just beat teams, they buried them. During the streak, Oklahoma outscored opponents 34-6 on average, held teams under 10 points 35 times, and recorded 22 shutouts. That's not dominance, that's control. The streak led to 2 national championships and turned Oklahoma into the gold standard of college football. When the streak finally ended in 1957 against Notre Dame, it felt like the whole sport exhaled. Since then, a few teams have tried to chase it. USC, 34 games under Pete Carroll, Miami, 34 games during their early 2000s reign, and Florida State, 29 games with Jameis Winston, all elite, all fell short. Oklahoma's streak wasn't just about talent, it was about execution, consistency, and never letting up. And in today's era of transfers, playoff distractions, and weekly ranked matchups, 47 straight wins might be untouchable forever. Kellen Moore wasn't the biggest, fastest, or flashiest quarterback, but he was one of the most successful. From 2008 to 2011, he started nearly every game for Boise State, leading the Broncos to an incredible 50 victories, the most ever by a starting QB in college football history. What made Moore special was his football IQ. He ran Boise State's spread offense with surgical precision, reading defenses, making quick decisions, and rarely making mistakes. He wasn't throwing 70-yard bombs every play, but his timing, accuracy, and calm under pressure were elite. He turned matchups into chess games and always seemed 3 moves ahead. He led Boise to back-to-back Fiesta Bowl wins, pulled off major upsets over powerhouses like Oklahoma and Georgia, and kept Boise in the national spotlight year after year. While others chased stats, Moore stacked wins. His combination of talent, consistency, and leadership turned Boise into a national powerhouse, and his record may never be topped.